She walks the mean streets of Los Angeles on a crusade to help desperate young women who've turned to prostitution.
100% of the women with whom we work are victims of child abuse and neglect.
Nancy Glass goes into the gritty world of real-life call girls to show one woman's fight to get prostitutes a fresh start.
This former cop was put behind bars for murder, but Lawrencia Bembenek claimed she was framed, and her daring prison break made her a folk hero. But her life on the lam ended in Canada. Now she wants to return to the States. Today on Inside Edition, Bambi talks.
Swift is in. Chicago, we're coming to you first. Audio check, 1, 2. That's LA.
She's Asia's answer to Madonna, a multi-talented multi-millionaire who has her own version of Truth or Dare.
She's caused a lot of controversy. She dares to do the undareable.
Meet Hong Kong's boy toy, Anita Mui.
Stand by.
Hello, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you for watching Inside Edition today. We have a very busy broadcast for you, including a young woman who makes Madonna look tame. She's the talk of Hong Kong and maybe heading here. And we'll take you inside America's funniest people and show you what goes on behind the scenes on that zany show. But first up today, the movie Pretty Woman glamorized prostitution to some extent, but in reality, it is a terrible world where nobody wins. In Los Angeles, the streets are full of prostitutes, but one woman is trying to change that. Nancy Glass is here with our story. Nancy.
Bill, it's a desperate existence. Women who walk the streets at night. They never know if the next John will be a cop or a killer, if they'll have enough money to survive. Well, one woman has made it her mission to help prostitutes turn their lives around. She has had 125 success stories, but she says she has a long way to go. You look around this area here, what do you see?
I see a lot of bad memories. I see a lot of blood and sweat and tears and frustration and anger.
Teresa Martinez is 27. She considers herself lucky to be alive. As a teenage mother with 2 children to support, she turned to prostitution. She made up to $1,500 a night. She was also repeatedly beaten and raped. She became a drug addict. She was arrested 24 times in 4 years. The mean streets of Los Angeles were her territory. What were you so angry about?
I was probably angry because I had to be out here, because I didn't know how to do anything else.
Is this a life for anyone to lead?
I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
I used to tell myself I'm a hoe, I'm always going to be a hoe, you know. And it took me to want to get myself together.
Karen is also a former prostitute. She says for her it was a life filled with hopelessness. The money came and went toward her drug habit.
Good nights when I was working escort service, I used to bring home $1,600, $1,700 a night. Street prostitution isn't so good not unless you know how to steal.
Did you steal?
Yes, so.
For both Karen and Teresa, those days are long gone. Karen, who prefers to keep her identity confidential, is working as a welder. Teresa is training to be a drug counselor. They both say it is tough to break the downward spiral of prostitution. It took strength and a woman like Ann Heyman. This is the Reverend Ann Heyman.
Too often we are indeed separated and alienated from our better self, separated and alienated from God.
And this is the Ann Heyman who is getting women out of prostitution.
I would guess that I have not met someone who either wanted to be a prostitute or liked being one. They did, however, choose it. And my experience is that if I provide them with any kind of alternative that's viable, they will take it and they will make it work.
This house looks like any other in this typical California suburban neighborhood. The difference is that for the women inside, it represents the first safe haven they have ever known. For 11 years, women have come here to get off the streets and escape a life of prostitution. Here, Ann Heyman sets up career training and counseling, provides support and shelter for former prostitutes and their children. You're not waving a Bible? You're not making any moral judgments?
No.
Why isn't it a moral issue for you?
Women who choose to go into prostitution are choosing to do that because of a need to survive. That takes it out of the realm of of morality.
Ann Heyman is talking about girls as young as 12 walking the streets and in and out of jail before they are 20. Young girls who turn to prostitution because they have nowhere else to go.
When they make a decision to go into prostitution, it's because they've already been sexually active. They're probably involved in incest for the most part. 100% of the women with whom we work are victims of child abuse and neglect. There's no exception to that.
Teresa knows that all too well. She left home for good when she was a teenager and turned to the streets in desperation.
Did you ever say to yourself, I'm a kid, I'm a teenager, I should be living a different kind of life?
I was never a kid. I ran away from home probably for the first time when I was 12. I never graduated with my class. I never went to a high school prom. You know, I never hung out with people my age, you know. And I miss that, you know, I really do.
Ann Heyman tries to intervene as soon as possible. She visits the jails and screens women for her program.
Do you have any arrests for alcohol or drugs? Under the influence, possession?
And women like Karen know how hard it is to walk away.
You know, because you know you need money to eat, sleep, and if you use drugs to pay for your drugs, and if you got a man that doesn't want you to come home, not unless you have some money or you're going to get your ass beat, you got to stay out there.
And she always went back to work in spite of the beating she suffered at the hands of her pimp.
Well, I couldn't see out of my eyes and cigarette burns in my chest.
And you took it?
I didn't have a choice.
How many tricks would you turn in a day?
I'd say anywhere from 5 to 12, depending on what type of night it was.
How did you feel about those men?
They were disgusting. They were dirty. They were lonely.
And Teresa says not much has changed in the years she was on these streets. The Johns are still there, and the prostitutes are still young and desperate.
When you go out on the street and you see those girls standing on the corner, what do you want to say to them?
I'm going to grab them by the hair and throw them in my car and drop them off at the nearest rehabilitation center.
Teresa is now back in school, taking care of her children and feeling great about what she has accomplished. Karen says through Ann's program, she found the strength to go straight and stay there.
What did you learn about yourself?
That I'm not so bad. And I've learned that I can do a lot of things that I never thought I could.
I used to say that there's no place like home. I wish I could find it. And it was inside of me all this time, you know. And that's probably why I'm so comfortable now. You know, I finally got home.
And Reverend Heyman says the women on the streets don't worry about AIDS. Most are more concerned with day-to-day survival. They don't count on living that long anyway. It's a terrible existence, Bill.
Thank you, Nancy, for that report. And there is much more ahead as Inside Edition moves along. We will introduce you to a lady more outrageous than Madonna. And coming next, the continuing saga of Lawrencia Bembenek. Convicted of murdering her husband's ex-wife, she escaped from prison. Now she says she wants to tell her story.
Did you kill Christine Schultz?
No, I didn't.
Were you in her house the night she was killed?
No.
Did you take Fred's gun and shoot her in the back?
No.
Where were you the night she was killed?
In my apartment.
Inside Edition has been closely following the case of Lawrencia Bembenek, a former policewoman who was convicted of murder and then escaped from prison and fled to Canada. The story is simply incredible. While Miss Bembenek continues to maintain her innocence, she now says she wants to return to the U.S. Our Dan Goldfarb has been talking to Miss Bembenek.
Lawrencia Bembenek was a beautiful young woman. She could have been a successful model. But in 1980, at the age of 21, she decided on a career in the Milwaukee Police Department. That was the beginning of the end for Lawrencia Bembenek. On May 28, 1981, Christine Schultz was shot and killed. She was the ex-wife of Milwaukee Police Detective Fred Schultz. The only eyewitnesses were their two children. They described the suspect as a man with a heavy build, wearing a green jogging suit with a white stripe down the arm. But 3 weeks after Christine Schultz was killed, Lawrencia Bembenek, Schultz's new wife of 5 months, was arrested for the murder. One of the victim's sons testified that Lawrencia wasn't the killer. The judge said it was the most circumstantial case he had ever seen. But when it was over, ex-model, ex-cop, Lawrencia Bembenek was convicted of Christine Schultz's murder.
You, Lawrencia Bembenek, are to serve a term of life imprisonment.
Did you kill Christine Schultz?
No, I didn't.
Were you in her house the night she was killed?
No.
Did you take Fred's gun and shoot her in the back?
No.
Where were you the night she was killed?
In my apartment.
When Inside Edition first met Lawrencia Bembenek in August of 1989, she had already been in prison for 7 years. New evidence had surfaced casting doubts about her guilt. New evidence suggesting that Lawrencia was the victim of corrupt elements of her own police department.
Women were getting fired for doing something as simple as forgetting to wear a flashlight or, you know, simple little rule violations.
Lawrencia was fired almost as soon as she graduated from the police academy. The reason? Improperly filing a report. She sued the department for sexual discrimination, stating white male cops were getting away with everything.
They were selling pornography out of their squad car trunks. They were going to bars all the time, drinking in the cemetery, sleeping all night, getting sex from prostitutes, going into dope houses, you know, doing dope. It was just outrageous.
But she had no proof. Then an informant began to give her pictures of nude parties in public parks attended by off-duty police officers. Lawrencia began to secretly turn the pictures into the police department. An internal investigation began.
And at the time, I didn't know that really it was just the tip of the iceberg.
The parties were sponsored by a bar called Tracks, and according to confidential sources who frequented the bar, Lawrencia Bembenek was a problem that had to be handled. It seemed the investigation prompted by Lawrencia infuriated the party-going members of her former police squad.
They had everything to lose by somebody at the Tracks being busted. They couldn't afford to have anybody squealing on them, and Lawrencia was squealing.
Nevertheless, Lawrencia continued to serve her life sentence, always maintaining her innocence, but losing hope that she would be vindicated. Then, in a desperate move in July of 1990, Lawrencia Bembenek escaped from prison with the help of her fiancé. After 3 months on the run, Lawrencia was recognized in the restaurant where she was working in Canada. We spoke to Lawrencia from her prison cell in Thunder Bay, Ontario.
The question on a lot of people's minds is, why did you run in the first place? Didn't that just make the situation worse?
No, I had absolutely nothing to lose. I exhausted all legal remedies, and I could get no justice in Wisconsin at all.
In 1982, the district attorney in Milwaukee offered Lawrencia a deal. Plead guilty, and you'll be out by 1984.
So why didn't you take the deal?
I refused to plead guilty for something I didn't do. And I had a naive, ridiculous trust and hope in the system at the time. You know, I truly believed at that time that I would be acquitted.
Are you claiming that you were framed, Lawrencia?
There's overwhelming evidence that I was.
By the Milwaukee Police Department?
Yes.
Dr. Chesley Irwin was the chief medical examiner at the time of Bembenek's trial. Irwin now says he is prepared to testify that the evidence used to convict Lawrencia was faulty.
My personal reaction is that there are major problems, either tampering with the evidence or such horrendous errors that I almost can't imagine.
During the last year in Toronto, Lawrencia applied for Canadian refugee status, and she vigorously fought extradition proceedings that would have returned her to Milwaukee. But in a new twist in the case, Lawrencia has dropped the refugee claim and stopped the fight against extradition. It seems Milwaukee authorities are now investigating charges of evidence tampering.
Well, questions have been raised, and it's my function to try to find, is there any evidence to warrant these questions being raised?
Well, just today, Canada's Attorney General Kim Campbell says that she has signed extradition papers that clear the way for Ms. Bembenek to be returned to the U.S. She could be back in Milwaukee as soon as next week, where she hopes a new trial will finally clear her name. Just ahead, the boy toy of Hong Kong. We will introduce you to the Asian Madonna.
She's always had elements of Madonna, I think. In the past, she's always had the bad girl image of Madonna.
She can sing, she can dance, and she can act.
She is outrageous, super successful, and super rich. She is Anita Mui, and she makes Madonna look, well, tranquil. Tony Cox takes us to Hong Kong to meet the boy toy of Asia.
She's a material girl, the undisputed first lady of entertainment, Asia's answer to Madonna.
She's considered what you call a triple threat. She can sing, she can dance, and she can act.
She's always had elements of Madonna, I think. Not so much as she, you know, going to all out to look like Madonna, but in the past, she's always had the bad girl image of Madonna.
Meet Hong Kong's queen of pop music.
Oh, America. Why, Anita Mui.
Anita Mui has been on top for 10 years with 5 Jade Solid Gold Awards and 5 years as most popular female singer. Like Madonna, she's a multi-talented, multi-millionaire.
She's doing the same thing that Madonna has done. She's caused a lot of controversy. She's done something that no one has ever done in Hong Kong. She dares to do the undareable.
Mui is the first and only Chinese singer to perform in blonde wigs wearing a bra. But it's only one of her many faces on stage. Over a 3-hour show, she changes costumes constantly. One moment she's Marilyn Monroe, the next, a China doll. So which image is the real Anita Mui? All of the above.
I always want to give the audience a surprise and let them wonder, what will be next? That's why I think that different hairstyles and costumes play such a big part. It's in my showmanship. The real me is actually when I'm off stage and I am not imitating anybody.
Her big break came 10 years ago when she won the first New Talent Singing Awards in Hong Kong. It was like winning Grand Champion on Star Search. Her father died when she was very young. Her mother worked, so Anita began singing for her supper at age 5.
When I was young, I didn't have any choice. I had to earn money to support my family. The only thing I could do really well is singing and dancing. Then it became my passion.
But now, at the ripe age of 28, Anita Mui is retiring from the stage at the top. Her sold-out farewell concerts in Hong Kong recently brought in about $7 million in 1 month. But she wants to concentrate on studio recording and movie acting. She's already appeared in a dozen films, winning Hong Kong awards for her talent. Now, she's dreaming of Hollywood.
In my fantasy of fantasies, I want to become a more popular singer in the U.S. But being Chinese, I know that it's difficult to make it because of the language barrier. But if the right role comes up, I would certainly try my best.
So does the Asian chameleon have what it takes to outdo Madonna?
She's very, very famous here, but would she be this big if she was somewhere else? I mean, has she got the talent of Madonna, say? No.
But don't count her out. Anita Mui is on a roll, ready to climb every mountain, touch every star.
And Anita tells us Madonna is not her favorite performer. Diana Ross is. And Inside Edition will be right back with a close-up look at America's funniest people. And here's what's upcoming on Inside Edition.
He was present at least 4 murders.
The government changed his name and gave him a new identity. But when local police discovered his dirty past, he decided he had to protect himself.
By putting the spotlight on myself, that I would make them think twice.
Inside the wise guy who ran for mayor.
That's tomorrow, and finally today, the show America's Funniest People is a big hit. It seems there's a comedian in every neighborhood of America. Often they're a lot funnier than the pros. And what goes on behind the scenes at Funniest People is almost as zany as what gets on the air. Joel Loy reports.
Everyone who works knows it's a jungle out there. Putting on that monkey suit every day, people dropping in unexpectedly. Co-workers who go bananas on you. If you thought you saw a gorilla, you did. It's just another day at the office when you work for America's Funniest People. on location for a special show at Universal Studios in Florida, America's Funniest People brought in a menagerie of friends to help show the tapes sent in by viewers. The staff had everyone looking their best. Co-hosts Arlene Sorkin and Dave Coulier gave us the inside scoop on what really goes on backstage.
You know, it's nothing good for Inside Edition, except that I am carrying his child and his wife doesn't know. Should I not tell them that?
Well, just, okay.
It's okay?
It's okay. It's
All
okay,
right.
honey. Hey, you know, we work together a lot.
That's right.
So get your camcorders rolling, and maybe someday you'll see yourself on screen doing some kind of monkey business.
Okay, Bill, back to you. No bull.
Always liked Bullwinkle, you know, and that squirrel, too. That is it for us today. Thanks again for watching Inside Edition. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Hope to see you tomorrow.